All right, Frank, number 43 on your list. It's Wild America. I can't witness Wild America right now because we're in quarantine. So it's, for me, it's more like Wild Studio Apartment. That's not an interesting film. Wild America is a 1997 action-adventure film directed by William Deere. And it stars Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Devon Sawa, Scott Bairstow, Francis Fisher, Jamey Sheridan, and Tracey Walter. Wild America is a film about a group of brothers who live out in the sticks of Arkansas in the 1960s, who are obsessed with movie making and wild animals, wild endangered animals. They convince their father to buy them a camera, and they decide to spend a couple of weeks on the road photographing wild endangered animals so that they can make a documentary out of it. The oldest brother, his ultimate goal is to become a documentary filmmaker. So it starts out as his idea, and then the middle brother decides that he's going to go with him, and then the younger brother basically sort of like hides in the back and ends up going along for the ride. And they have a big adventure over several weeks, driving all over the United States, photographing these wild exotic animals, but then they have to come back and face the reality of their lives. I gotta not laugh. I gotta try so hard to not laugh. I'm just going to put all of this in the video. Your thoughts on Wild America are? Your thoughts on Wild America are actually good. Don't be hating. Haters wanna hate, lovers wanna love. I love that. I don't know why, but that just it makes me laugh. It brings joy and pleasure to me. No, not good. This movie was not. It's not horrible. I will give it that. It's not horrible. But it's not good. It's so not good either. So many cliches in this, from using the most obvious music choices to punching up the drama in the most obvious ways. I don't want to criticize too much because this is based on a true story. These three guys are real people. There was a book or a memoir that this was based on, but it's such a Hollywoodized version of this. I have not read the original, so I can't sit there and say with 100% accuracy yeah, they really punched up the drama for it, but I have a really hard time believing that all of the things that happen in this movie happened in real life the way that they happened in this movie. I feel like some scriptwriter got a hold of the book and was like, okay, we can push this up and we can make this more dramatic by doing this. I mean, there's literally a scene where Jonathan Taylor Thomas's character gets attacked by an adult moose, or maybe it's a caribou. I can't remember. It's either a moose or a caribou, and the animal scoops him up in its horns and gallops away with him in his horns. Did that happen in real life? Maybe, but probably not. I don't know. I would have to read the source material that Wild America is based off of, and I'm not going to do that. Didn't like this film enough to do it, just not going to do it. So there you go. Got my trusty notes here, so I'm going to reference those a little bit. One of the funniest things about this movie to me, and I I don't think that this is hating, but it might be. Um, one of the funniest things about this movie to me was the fact that Jonathan Taylor Thomas the whole time reminds me of David in AI. So it's like throughout the whole movie, well, not as much towards the end, but through like definitely the first like 70% of the movie, he would just be like sort of like standing there, like lifeless, just staring at things. Like the other brothers would be doing something and he would just be like, and then they would engage him and he would like show emotion. But it's like I kept I kept waiting for Jonathan Taylor Thomas to like look at one of his brothers and be like, when will I be a real boy? Like, and it's funny because I have to spoil this a little bit for the sake of this, but I don't really care. I didn't really like this movie, so it's like I don't really recommend that you watch it anyway, so I'm just going to spoil part of it. So Jonathan Taylor Thomas, there's a point where throughout the whole movie, there's an airplane in their barn. It's like a naval training airplane or something like that, or an Air Force training airplane. It's one of those old World War II style airplanes with like the single rotor engine and the wings, and it's like a two-seater, like back to back, almost like a Red Baron kind of plane, but obviously newer than that. And he's rebuilding this with his dad, and he finds out that his dad has never, even though his dad knows how to fix airplanes and was an airplane mechanic during the war. I'm thinking probably not World War II, maybe Korea, but I don't know. I don't know if it specifically says. Anyway, he doesn't know how to fly planes. He doesn't actually know how to fly. He only knows how to fix the planes. So Jonathan Taylor Thomas's character just has always automatically assumed that whenever they fix this plane, him and his dad are going to go out flying it because he assumes his dad knows how to fly. He gets told that his dad, in fact, does not know how to fly, which is one of those moments as a kid where it's like you start to see your parents differently. And the whole film is like kind of about them becoming adults in a way. But Jonathan Taylor Thomas's moment for that is that when they come back from the trek, his dad has finished the plane, has finished like restoring the plane. And his dad ends up his dad is like a long haul trucker, ends up in an accident, and Jonathan Taylor Thomas, he ends up in an accident and he is in the hospital. He's in like the VA hospital there in like the little town that they live outside of. And Jonathan Taylor Thomas is like, I'm flying this plane with or without you. Like, I don't need you. I'm an adult and I'm going to fly this plane. And it's like, in a way, it's like, that is kind of like when David becomes a real boy, Jonathan Taylor Thomas gets in the plane. He has no idea. And he has no clue what he's doing. He starts it up. He, starts flying it. His dad had been like telling him all these instructions the whole time, even though he doesn't actually know how to fly, but he had been making Jonathan Taylor Thomas memorize all these instructions. So he just goes down the list and he gets airborne. And then our little android becomes a real boy.
I'm a boy.
You are a real boy. At least as real as I've ever made one.
So to me, that was the most entertaining part of Wild America, is seeing this like wooden child actor come alive. So good for you, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, or whatever your character's name was in that movie. Okay, so on my notes here, there's just a couple other like little random things. Another hilarious moment is when they're out in the wilderness, they end up on this. They end up on like restricted government land, but I guess they don't realize it because the sign had like blown over or something. And it's basically like a bombing range. So they're out there and they're like shooting, I think, like goats, like wild goats, or maybe like wild horses or something. And all of a sudden these fighter jets come and they start like, shooting missiles and dropping bombs and stuff. And there's this like gigantic boulder that they're near. And one of the fighter jets like shoots a missile or drops a bomb on this boulder and it explodes. And the boulder is so obviously foam, and all the parts of it are so obviously foam that it just made me crack up. Like I said, even though I did not like this film, there are a couple of parts of it that like genuinely made me laugh and allowed me to enjoy it a little bit more. One of the things that kind of like killed it for me, other than it just being kind of goofy and not feeling, it just feels so amped up in Hollywood eyes. And a great example of that is the scene with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and the father character after he has flown the plane and he goes to the hospital and he's like, it's basically his like, I'm a man now scene. Like, I don't need you, I'm a man. And like all the dialogue and everything is just so on the nose. I think that's the thing that ultimately like kills this film for me, is it feels like a film that should have been made in the 80s when all of these types of like throwback to the 60s films were being made. It feels like they were just like, we'll just take that formula and just do it exactly. Like, this is like Wild America is the craziest episode of the Wonder Years that I've ever seen.
There, that's me. Kevin Arnold, 1968.
There's other films that have used all these elements before ad nauseum and done it a lot better. So, Frank, I be hating. The cat has some claws. That was one of the funniest things in the world, is like I made my Clifford review and he was like, oh, nobody told me the cat was coming out. So yeah, the cat is not coming out as much as it did on Clifford, but it's definitely coming out for Wild America. So I do not recommend this movie for anybody except maybe 8-year-olds. Sorry, Frank. I know that you like this movie. I did not. I did not enjoy it. I'm not going to say it's you know what, because I feel like I've already kind of run that into the ground. So I'm gonna hold off on that for a little while. Maybe I'll bring it back later as like a little retro thing. But anyway, next up on your list is number 44. It's Dark of the Sun. This should be interesting. I've never heard of this movie. 1960s action adventure film. The poster graphic looks amazing. Some dudes having a fight with chainsaws. Looks really cool. So kind of excited to see that. Anyway, until next time, like, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff. If you're watching this, please. And Frank, Wild America, sorry. That's just it. That's where I'm at. Until next time, see you later.